Okay, we'll try this again. I run out of room on my phone before, so I had the story partly told, and then I run out of room. So here we go. There's Rocky. He's having a sleep. I don't know if you can see him or not, but there he is if you can. Um, yeah. Now, this is a story about my dad, and it goes back to 1957 when my dad was 20 years old, and it was something that he did. And how I found out about it was him and a friend of his did it. And how I found out about it was in 1983, 1957 was 25 years ago. And in our local newspaper, they had one of those things like you'd see in newspapers where they would put the news from 25 years ago and from 50 years ago and from 75 years ago or 100 or whatever it was in the newspaper. They had a little column there where they print a bunch of old news stories. Well, my dad was reading the paper in 1983 and he started laughing. I asked him what was so funny, what he was laughing about. And he said he was laughing at this story in the 25-year ago column. And the reason he was laughing is because at the end of the story it said that the culprits had yet to be identified or apprehended. And he was laughing because he said, well, we still haven't been identified or apprehended. It turns out what he had done is him and a friend of his were walking down the street on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon or something, sometime on the weekend. And the police were at the hotel. They were going past the hotel. And the police were at the hotel, and they were in the beverage room breaking up a fight. Now, the police had two cars. They had a 1952 Chevy, which was the old police car, and they kept it. And they also had a 1957 Ford, which was the new police car. And apparently the 57 Ford had a real fast V8 engine in it. It was all souped up and everything. They had that to chase people, basically, so they could catch people. And my dad and his friend, and the friend I'm talking about here isn't the same friend of my dad's that I've talked about in a couple other stories. It isn't Alvin, it's a different friend, just for the record. They're all gone now anyway. They're all dead and gone, these people, but I'll tell you the story anyway. Cops were in the hotel in the beverage room breaking up a brawl. My dad and one of his friends decided that they would take the nice new police car out, the nice new 57 Ford, and see what it could do, run it through its paces. So they get into the car and they drive off in it because the cops, I suppose, thinking nobody would dare steal the police car, left the keys in the car. So they drive off in the new police car. Well, somebody saw them getting into the car and driving away. So they go into into the hotel, into the beverage room, and they told the cops in there, they said, somebody just left in your car. Well, at first the cops didn't really think so. They didn't believe them, but then they said, we better go out and look anyway, just in case. So they go out, and sure enough, the car's gone. So they pile into the 52 Chev, the old police car that was still there, and now they're giving pursuit. And anyway, my dad and his friend could hear the siren in the distance, so they knew that the police were after them. But the car they were driving was a lot faster than the car the police were driving. And so what they did is they put up some speed, got some distance between themselves and the cops, and they went up on the highway, and they basically abandoned the car at an old gas station restaurant type of a place that was all closed down. And they went through a chain link fence. They went through a hole in the chain link fence and across the fields back to my grandparents' house, which was, my dad's parents' house. And that's what they did anyway, because they were scared to get away from the police. When they went through the fence, my dad ended up tearing a gash right across here on his chin, right there. And I remember when I was a kid, when he'd have 5 o'clock shadow like what I have right now, and he had dark 5 o'clock shadow, he had black hair, my dad did. And that was one place where hair wouldn't grow, so it really showed, that scar on his chin, and I always wondered about it, but I knew not to ask my dad questions. If he wanted me to know something, he would tell me. And so I never did ask him about it. But when he told me the story, that's when I found out what happened. He got this cut on his chin, and he couldn't go to the hospital, because he was on the run from the cops, basically. So my grandmother's sister, who would be my great aunt and who was my dad's aunt, she happened to be down for a visit, and she stitched my dad's chin up with a sewing needle and thread, a sewing thread and a needle, stitched the wound closed. And I'm sure that she really let him know that he had done wrong while she was doing it too. My great aunt, I knew her, and she could be pretty harsh anyway, so I would imagine he got a good tongue lashing for what he did, while he was getting stitched up, and she probably just drove that needle right in there just to really make the point. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Anyway, that's the story. My dad and one of his friends, they decided to take the new police car out for a joyride in 1957, a brand new 1957 Ford with a high-powered V8 engine in it, fast car for the times. And that's what happened. They never did get caught. And lucky for them they didn't, because they'd have been in a world of trouble had they gotten caught. I mean, it would have been probably jail, and for sure it would have been a beating, for doing that. I'm sure the police would have worked them over pretty good for doing that. It'd be an awful embarrassing thing for the police to have somebody steal their police car. So, anyway, they were both very lucky they didn't get caught. Of course, my dad has been gone since 1988. He died when I was 20. The fella that he stole the car with ended up being a fairly successful businessman in town, and he developed Alzheimer's disease, and it was kind of a sad thing anyway, and he just kind of lingered away there for a while, and then he passed away quite a few years ago now too, But, so they're both gone now anyway, but yeah, quite a story anyway. I just thought I'd share that with you. And I'll give you one last look at Rocky before I hang up the phone on you. Here we go now. There he is. There's my Rocky. There he is anyway, sleeping away there. I don't know how he feels about the paparazzi, but sleeping away. Anyway, I hope y'all having a good night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye for now.